let's look at analysis of Mrs Birling. Firstly, looking at her roles. She's a stereotypical upper-class pre-war woman with capitalist views. She lets her husband control her, even though she's of a higher class. Her role in the family. Despite the fact that she's of a higher class than her husband, she's subservient to him. In a patriarchal household and society, she's in charge of the household and teaching Sheila how to be a good-mannered young lady who understands pre-war etiquette perfectly. Her role in the play. Priestley portrays a stereotypical upper-class pre-war woman. She's concerned about her reputation, social status, and appearance. Her priorities are to keep an unblemished reputation and dress well so as to show off her husband's wealth. She shares her husband's capitalist ideas about people only looking after themselves. She's uninterested in how others. Mrs Birling represents the selfish attitudes of the wealthy higher classes. She thinks lower class people deserve their misfortune and thinks they're completely inferior to her. Her connection with Eva. When a pregnant Eva approached the Brumley Women's Charity Organisation for financial help, Mrs Birling, who chaired the committee, took a disliking to her and refused to give any help. Let's recap that. Mrs Birling is a stereotypical upper-class pre-war woman. What is she concerned about? It's her reputation, social status, and her appearance. Her character development. She represents the uncaring upper classes. She refuses to accept any blame and does not learn anything from her interrogation. She tries to intimidate Inspector Gould and her husband. Priestley uses Mrs Birling to really bring out the uncaring, selfish, self-centered nature of the upper classes in society. He felt these were the people who needed to change in order to improve wider society. People like Mrs Birling needed to care about other people, to accept the changes that needed to happen to improve everyone's lives, not just those of the upper classes. Mrs Birling refuses to even cooperate with the police detective, showing him that she feels she is above the law. Instead, she challenges him and calls him impertinent for doing his job. Cold-hearted. Priestley highlights Mrs Birling as cold-hearted and unlikable throughout the play. Right from the start, she scolds Mr Birling for a small social error. She accepts no blame and doesn't change. Although she comes to accept her children's faults by the end, Mrs Birling refuses to accept that she played any role in Eva Smith's death. She does not care at all about the lives of her classes and feels that Eva Smith's misfortunes were her own fault. By the end of the play, Mrs Birling also has not changed at all. She wants to dismiss the whole evening. Is this why they get a second visit from a real police inspector? Does Inspector Gould act as a warning which they do not take? Her interactions with Inspector Gould. She's the only character to stay completely unaffected by Inspector Gould's revelations. She shows no emotion about Eva until she learns about Eric's involvement. Mrs Birling also tries to intimidate Inspector Gould into leaving and lies to him outright. Later in the play, she tries to deny truths she doesn't want to believe because they tarnish the perfect image of the family, such as Eric's drinking and each Gerald's affair with Eva. Let's recap that. Which of these statements are true about Mrs Birling's interactions with Inspector Gould? Does she call him shrewd or impatient? The correct answer is she calls him shrewd or impertinent, Correct answer is she calls him impertinent. Does she try to intimidate him into leaving, or lie to him outright? Or is she subservient to Inspector Gould as he is a man in patriarchal society? Correct answer is she tries to intimidate him into leaving and lies to him outright. Is she the only character to stay completely unaffected by his revelations, or does she feel enormous guilt as he points out her involvement with Eva Smith? The correct answer is she's the only character to stay completely unaffected by his revelations. Who does Mrs Birling represent? Socialist revolutionary, the suffering lower class, the uncaring upper class, or the promising future generation? Correct answer is she represents the uncaring upper class. Mrs Birling highlights the negative aspects of capitalism and how the upper classes mistreat lower class people. Priestley uses Mrs Birling to highlight serious social issues in British society. Capitalism bred people who do not care for anyone but themselves, and they saw lower class people as less than human. This means that they do not care how they treated these people. Priestley presents Mrs Birling as a villain to encourage the audience to understand the horrible consequences of capitalist society. He knew that social attitude needed to change for society to become fairer and more caring. The mistreatment of the lower classes. Mrs Birling also helps to show how terrible life was for lower class people in pre-war Britain. The lives depended on higher class people making the decisions for them. If their social superiors chose to mistreat them or not help them, there was little that lower class people could do to have a happy life. Let's recap that. What things did Mrs Birling represent? The negative impacts of capitalism, and how the upper classes mistreated the lower class people. Priestley presents Mrs Birling as a villain to encourage the audience to understand the horrible consequences of a capitalist society. He knew that social students to change society to become better and more caring. What is Mrs Birling's connection to Eva? Did she refuse to give Eva financial help when she asked Bromley Women's Charity Organisation for support? Is Eva her daughter? Did she fire Eva from the factory for leading a group that was campaigning for the pay rise? Or did she get Eva fired from Millwoods because she was in a bad mood? The correct answer is that she refused to give Eva financial help when she asked Bromley Women's Charity Organisation for support. Some more statements about Mrs Birling. She's in charge of the household, in charge of teaching Sheila how to be a good-mannered young lady who understands pre-war etiquette perfectly, thinks lower-class people deserve their misfortune, and thinks they are completely inferior to her. She's also subservient to her husband even though she's of a higher class. She brings out the non-caring nature of the upper classes, the police detective because she feels she's above the law, is cold-hearted, and refuses to accept she played any role in Eva Smith's death.